So I just did an interview with Rena Owen. Rena Owen is a legend. She is an amazing Polynesian actress. She was in Once Were Warriors, which is one of the most powerful movies ever made. The sequel to that movie, What Becomes of the Broken Hearted. She was in Star Wars: Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. She was in Steven Spielberg's AI. She currently, and a ton of other stuff, and she's currently on a TV show on Freeform called Siren, which is a huge hit. Awesome show, huge, massive following. And, this interview really changed my life. It really changed the course of my day. It made my day so much better. And it just made she said some things that'll stick with me for the rest of my life. And it was just very empowering, and very informing. And just the advice that she was giving, was just sage wisdom, and it was given to, and it's from her, but a lot of the stuff is from legendary actors like Russell Crowe, Michael Caine, and much more. And I really, if you are driving, or you just have some time to listen to a 1 hour interview from one of the greats, I can say that from the bottom of my heart, one of the great actors of our time. It will help you in your day. It'll help you in your life. So I hope you'll give it a listen. Thank you, Rena Owen. Okay, you there?
Yeah, kia ora, aloha.
Hello, Rena. Thank you so much, Rena, for doing this.
You're welcome, Fairai. What do you say, Fairai?
It's actually Fairai, like roll the R.
Oh, okay. Fairai.
Yeah, exactly. Fairai, yeah. Kind of like tie-dye with an F is what I tell people.
Fairai. Yeah, well, it was very, very Rastafarian.
Yeah.
Is that where your parents got the name from?
Some people call me Rastafari, but no, it's a Tahitian name.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that Tahitians used an F.
Yeah, well, they do. It's actually, in Tahiti, they say Fairai, but my parents they just say Fairai. So
yeah, that must have had a bit of French, because in our language, native language, we only have A, E, I, O, U, and a W and a T. We don't have many consonants at all in our language.
Right.
We definitely do not have an F as in Frank. We
Right.
do have an S sound, f, but that's a WH.
Oh wow, okay.
Like Tahiti Toru fa is WHA.
Right.
So we have an F sound, but not an actual letter F.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah,
right.
Of course, there's a word that comes to mind that's probably really, really famous. But I don't very really cuss, but I'll send you a little something one day that was hilarious about that particular word. Anyway,
I can't wait. How are you doing in this time of quarantine right now?
I'm good. Well, nothing's really changed for me in terms of my life and my lifestyle.
Right.
Very minor things, because I think what a lot of people don't realize about us creatives is the bulk of our work is done at home.
Right.
I sit at home, I read scripts. I sit at home, I write scripts. I learn lines. I work on accents. I do my business communications. I work from home if and when I'm not actually on set executing what I've worked on at home. The only real things that I personally can't do that I do miss is going to my yoga classes, going on my nature walks, going to a cinema to see a movie, going to industry events. But those are all things I can live without. They're not 101. So I'm kind of made for times like this, for two reasons. First and foremost, the way I grew up. I grew up in the sticks. I didn't grow up in a city. I grew up living on the land. So I learned at a very young age 101s in life. The sun comes up, you plant, you harvest, you feed the family, the sun goes down. The rest is all a luxury. And also, too, working in theatre for the first 10 years of my career, where you make no money in theatre, or very, very little money. So I've been in this game now for 35 years. So if there's one thing I got real good at, is I got to live in a very rich life on no money. And as people would say to me, "Oh, so you're poor?" And I go, "Hell no, I'm the richest woman in the world. I'm doing what I love. I'm doing what I want to do with my life. I just don't have any money." So for me, there's a difference. There's a big difference. So I'm one of the very few people in this world that if you threw me on an island, I could survive.
Right.
And I think there's skills that people, as we progress in this world, more and more people are going to have to start learning these 101 skills of how to survive when everything gets taken away from you. Because this won't be the last time. There will be more superbugs. There will be more wars. It's just inevitable. It's never a matter of what, it's always just a matter of when, these things that are predictable. And I can't think of the word they use for this people who buy into the whole apocalypse end of days, but they're all well stocked up. They all did extraordinary well in this time. All their industries got sold out because they were stocked up on masks and foods and survival stuff. We have earthquakes here in LA. You guys have your own natural disasters. So these 101 skills of how to survive, it's a good wake up call for everyone. I mean, did I go out and stock up on a lot of edible or non-perishable food? Yeah, I did. I kind of stocked up on stuff that I probably should always just have here as a surplus anyway. So for me, this has been a long overdue holiday. It's not really been a vacation on a beautiful island called Hawaii, but I finally had much needed downtime because I've been back to back gigs for years, and I haven't had a season where I've just been able to kind of let go and get off that, what do they call that? The hamster wheel, when you just on that wheel and you're running and you're running and you're running and you're running and you're going. I'm also well equipped for this kind of season because I had to learn at a very young age and throughout the course of my life how to keep your own counsel, the importance of having a relationship with yourself and your creator. Because at the end of the day, bottom line is everything can be taken from us. The only thing that's going to be left is you, yourself, and I in your mind. And so, having a spiritual life means I can go anywhere and go through anything because I know that I am loved and I'm taken care of spiritually. Maybe I've taken that a bit for granted throughout my lifetime and I've pushed my luck, but I couldn't have done this industry without faith. I could not have done it. I could not have done it. I set out knowing that I was choosing the harsher career, the unpredictable career. So in this lockdown, that's my norm. My norm as an actor is I never know where my next paid job is going to be. And even if I've signed on a dotted line or I've signed contracts, I've had films fall over on me at the last minute. So I learned an important lesson there. You say yes to work that's green lit and is right in front of you. Because I know after Once Were Warriors, the movie that launched me, I attached myself to a fantastic script, fantastic role. And I needed a fantastic project to follow on from Once Were Warriors, because that in itself was a hard act to follow, or let alone match or top. And so I signed a deal memo for this movie and I saved myself for it. And in the meantime, in the course of 12 to 14 months, I was turning down greenlit paid work. Never again. I say that to actors now. Take that thing that's right in front of you. Do not save yourself, because our industry is totally unpredictable. It always has been. It always will be. So we have to learn to live one day at a time, because that's all I've got. I don't know if the world's going to blow up tonight. I don't know if we're going to have an earthquake tomorrow in Los Angeles. So I've gotten really good at living just one day at a time And I also know, and as an actor, this is how you have to work. You work moment by moment, breath by breath. And all any of us really have is this present moment. And when you realize that, you realize that that's the point of power. Because too many of us are stuck in the past in our heads and our minds. So we're stuck in a place that can't be changed, or we're stuck in the fear of the future, another place that you've got no control over. The only thing we have some say over is this how we choose to spend this present moment. And I learned this as a young actor in London, this saying, and it's so true, that everything can be taken away from man except one thing, and that is our ability to choose our attitude in any given moment of any day. We can go, okay, this moment I get to choose. Am I going to choose to be negative, or am I going to get happy and positive and go, hey, I'm locked down. Let's look at the positives, because I think it's easy. It's easier for a lot of creatives. We're allowed to use that word mental health in this day and age. And a lot of people in our industry kind of walk certain lines, because I think you have to be a little bit crazy to be in this industry. You do. Or you have to have these big imaginations, or this hypersensitivity, or this visionary aspect, or a vivid imagination. So, we can be prone to getting negative a lot easier than some people. And so for me, that's been a journey, a life journey of learning how to, okay, I hear that little negative voice, and I'm going to go, no, I'm just going to, ignore you. And I'm going to crush you with a positive thought. We are co-creators in this world, Yeah. So I'm choosing to use this time well. One of the biggest blessings is I've been able to watch, because I came back literally in brief. We finished shooting Siren in late December. I came back, I had Christmas in LA, so I was here for 10 days. Then I went down to New Zealand January 1st for 6 weeks, see family, take care of property, usual stuff in New Zealand. Then I came back in mid-February for 3 jobs. I can't elaborate on the jobs because they were all NDA jobs, non-disclosure jobs. But slowly but surely, I got to do my ADR, my additional dialogue recording for Siren. But then all the 3 jobs got locked down. One of them totally fell over, and I can talk about it because it fell over, and that was to play a leading role, voice role in a new video game. And I remember the creators emailing me, and they were just devastated. And they said, we so appreciated your commitment to the project, and we're devastated that we've all been made redundant. So that means the game is no longer over. And I just emailed them back, and I said, you know what, I'm good. I feel more sorry for you guys. You've been made redundant, and hopefully that game might come back one day. And so I'm good, because I know how to live in these lean, frugal, unknown times. And I say to people, I got rent control, and thanks to Siren, I've got savings. I got a roof over my head. I have food in my fridge. So I always look at that glass that's half full. Because if I allow myself to dwell on the half of the glass that's empty, I'd get all kind of bitter and twisted and miserable. Life's too precious to do. Life's too precious. And I say this to people, okay, we're locked down. There's certain things that have been taken away from us, but don't let it steal your joy. Don't let it steal your happiness. I'm going to read you this thing because I think you'll appreciate it, because it was actually posted by a Hawaiian who happens to be an incredibly exceptional makeup artist and is Janet Jackson's makeup artist. And he posted this, and it's quite, what's the word? It's quite blunt, but I think there's a lot of truth in it. Let me just read it to you, because it really spoke to me, and I thought, yeah. It literally, this post said, if you're not using this time to rest, reset, and prioritize your purpose and people in your life, you, my friend, are wasting an opportunity you may never get again. the world literally stopped and shifted for you to get your shit together. If this is torture for you, find out why. And yeah, I know it's blunt, but there's a lot of truth in that. This season is a gift. When have we been given the opportunity to just say, hey, I get to stay home for these next few months. I ain't got to go anywhere. I ain't got to do anything. So we take the good, and as it was saying just previously, one of the blessings is I've been able to follow Siren and create a lot of content for social media and engage with fans. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was working. I wouldn't have had the time. I would have posted the odd photo and that would have been about it. So I'm learning new things. I'm learning how to use Zoom. I might eventually be able to learn how to use live, because God knows I've had a lot of Siren fans go, please, 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 please do a live session. And I'm like, hang on, I'm not quite hooked up for that yet. So, I believe that God's in control. I believe in God, and so God's always had my back. God's had my back thus far. And I don't see any reason why God won't continue to be the director of my life. And I've always lived and worked that way. God is my agent. I've lived by the belief that I will play the roles I was destined and put on this planet to play. And life experiences help shape me for certain roles. So I'm good with whatever happens, because I have no idea what's going to happen. But it's just called going with the flow. I think islanders, we're generally a lot better at that than city folks, because that's how we grew up. We grew up in sync with nature, with just going with the flow, or learning how to catch waves. And you can't surf a wave when there's no wave. So I think there's skills that our ancestors had, and that some of us may have lost touch with if we became too cityfied and too dependent on material worlds. But anyway, I have a habit of talking too much, so please.
Oh, absolutely.
Ask questions.
No. You know what? That was so beautiful, because because I can relate to that a lot, and already that advice has helped me out a lot, because I am an Polynesian, person, but I am from the city. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. So that helps me, sort of just kind of calm down and relax. And, I've utilized this time to my advantage, because I, like you, have just been working nonstop. And I've utilized this time. I needed this time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Also, I also need to learn to relax, and I think the following, whoever listens to this will find great value in that. And that actually leads me to I have a question that I've created upon that, because you were saying that you've learned to live with very little money, and that you've pursued this thing called acting and directing and writing and in the film and theater. What drives you into that? Because you originally were in the medical profession, right? That's what you.
Yeah. Well, I've got to go back to creation, but before I do that, when talking about the survival aspects and our ancestors, and I've often thought of this if I've struggled. I thought, what? Our ancestors navigated and were some of the best seafarers in history. They navigated the oceans. They didn't even have a compass, bruh. They didn't have a compass. They had nature. That's all they had. They were in tune with nature and with the birds and with the waves and the ocean. And I think we need to get more back to that aspect of who we were before we get caught up in all of that, the distractions of Western living. I was born creative. I was one of 9, born in rural New Zealand. My father's Māori, Polynesian, and my dad's Māori Welsh. That's where Owen comes from. My mother is made up of English, Scandinavian, French, So got multiple different ancestors there, but I grew up on my taha Māori, my Māori side. And the reason for that is my mother was disowned by her family for marrying my father. My father and my mother hooked up in the 50s when biracial, interracial marriages were not a done thing. They just weren't a done thing. So I think we were one of the only half-caste families, as we were called back then in those days. And I was number 5, and I came out crying. I've always been overly emotional. I was hypersensitive, super hypersensitive, vivid imagination. So I was born a creative, and I believe this. I believe that every single person on this planet is born to be good at something. I can't build cars. I'm not good at that. I wasn't born to be something else. I was born to be a creative. And so I had a very creative childhood. And because we grew up on the land, we were incredibly inventive with the games we had. And, there was 9 of us. So there wasn't a lot of material wealth, but the wealth we had is just uncomparable. My grandmother had a dairy farm. We built huts. We played cowboys and Indians. We played bulldog. We just built huts. We just had this beautiful, amazing, creative childhood. And I started in little people school. You start going to primary school when you're 5 or 4.5, 5. And I obviously, because 97% of my hometown, Moerewa, was Māori. I think my mother was one of the only blondes in the entire valley. But I joined the Māori club, which was learning and performing traditional singing and dancing, which we did on a regular basis because the greater region was the Bay of Islands, a tourist resort. So we often would go out and entertain at Waitangi Day or entertain dignitaries who came to our school. I was first published when I was 8 years old. I entered a poetry contest for children under 10 years old, and I won. And so my poem got published, and I won a whole $5, which was a lot of money in the 60s. And then in high school, I was just continued to be in the Māori club. And so I loved performing. And I loved performing kapahaka. And our principal came and saw one of our performances. And he said to the head of the English department, who has directed all our annual musical productions, he said, I think you should audition that young Owen girl because I think she's got something. So I did my first audition at the age of 15, and I was cast in the role Bloody Mary in South Pacific. That was my first stage role at 15.
Wow.
And I did a really good job that I went on to do the lead role the following year, which was Calamity Jane and Calamity Jane. And I also did plays for the community and for the church, being Catholics. And so I knew as a teenager that I'd found my place in the world, which was on the stage, which was being a storyteller, which was being a performer. However, at the end of the 70s, there were 3 very important factors. First factor is that being an actor or writer wasn't considered a real job. So I don't know, maybe it's not considered a real job now, but it certainly wasn't then. As a little brown girl, I had no role models. We had no brown faces on our films, our TVs. So for me, it wasn't like, oh, well, I can see that Maori who looks like me doing that job. That's a potential job for me. No, that didn't happen then. And number 3, as a woman, my career options were I could be a secretary, a teacher, or a nurse. And so that's why I ended up going nursing. And it was the one thing that 15 years later, was it 1982 I qualified. So 15 years later, the thing that pleased me most about the success of Once Were Warriors is it told our little brown people that they could be actors. Right. They could be writers. They could be filmmakers. They could be directors. They were finally seeing images of people that looked like themselves being represented and portrayed on screen. So I did do the nursing, and I went to London in beginning of 1982, and I had aspirations of going to med school to become a doctor, but that creativity never left me. even during my years of nursing, I expressed that creativity in the scene, which was the end of the punk rock era, going into new age and ska and new wave. And I took a lot of photographs and was into music and fashion. But we were very influenced, my generation, by Britain. Not, now, of course, my nieces and nephews are very influenced by the American culture. And so I get to London. I thought, well, I'm going to have a good time and a holiday first before I knuckle back down, because I just come out of 5 years of college and 4 years, 3.5 years of nursing. But I did what young people did. We traveled a lot. We traveled to Europe. We went to music concerts. Nightclubs had become a thing. DJs were just coming around in 1983 in London. And with that whole scene came drugs. And I got into drugs. And I was both naive and also arrogant. I thought, hey, I'm educated. I'm a qualified nurse. I can play along with my mates. And no, I say now, and I freely say and openly say to young people, don't play with it. Nobody can play with drugs, because it's nothing to do with intelligence. It's nothing to do with your qualifications. It's nothing to do whether you come from a rich or a poor family. It's everything to do more with your spiritual and your emotional world, drugs and addiction. So I played with fire and I got burnt. But the good thing about going through, because the drug of choice back then in the early 80s was heroin. That was the big drug, and highly addictive. But the good thing about that process, because it's part of my life story, was coming off it and getting free of it, because I didn't want to be a junkie. Bottom line is, I didn't want to be junkie. I played with fire, got burnt, but I mentally could see what I was doing, but emotionally couldn't let go. And in the process, and I had a whole lot of help through therapy, and that's been 35 years ago. 35 years ago was the last time, September 85 was the last time I ever touched heroin. Never ever had a desire to do it, but I found a bigger and a better drug. So I knew at that time, while I was going through the process of coming off it and finding myself, and I knew, because in the year and a half that I'd played with drugs, I tried to do it myself. And I'd go to my friend's country house and get out of London, but I'd go back and nothing changed, because nothing had changed on the inside of me. So I knew that something had to change on the inside of me. And I was very lucky to be afforded fantastic therapy, and thus started the journey of having to look at what was going on inside of me. And as a result of being connected to my pain or my emotional world, came this immense desire I had to express myself. So that's when I wrote my first stage play, and I made a decision then. I thought, I've still got all this creativity in me, and I still want to be a storyteller. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to drama school. So I went to drama school. And by then I was 24, going on to 25. And so I did that part-time, because I also had to work jobs like waitressing and odd jobs to pay my bills, while I was also working in the theatre. And that's where it all began. And one good thing about that journey is, I'm glad I did all those drugs before I got into this industry. So, and I'd also too, it's like, I remember my teacher at the time at the Actors Institute, when I was bemoaning the fact of the hard time I'd gone through with getting caught up with drugs. And he said, yeah, but he said, look at you. He said, you can get up on a stage and you've got depth. He said, actors spend their life looking for depth that they may never, ever find. So I'm able to utilize that depth, because I had to go there in my own personal life. And so that's, I think, and I remember the day I made the decision. I was walking down Camden Road, and I came to a fork, a crossroad, and one went to Kentish Town, the other went to Camden. And I remember then going, you know what, you have to make a decision here. Either you're going to go and get some kind of medical-based kind of career or job, or if you're going to choose the arts, then this is what it's going to look like. And I could foresee, because I've got a lot of visionary stuff going on in me, and I could see the hardships of it, of never knowing whether I'd make a living, never knowing whether I'd get cast and stuff. But I knew that that's what I had to do. And it was kind of like, the metaphor was, it was like me picking up my cross and going, you know what, I'm going to choose the harder path, because I believe this is the path I'm supposed to walk. And so, yeah, God's been in the mix of my life, actually right back from as a child. And that's one thing, although I don't believe in dogma or doctrine, I'm very grateful that at a very young age, I had an introduction to God, because as a little kid, I used to love saying my prayers. I remember I was so in love with God, I wanted to be a nun, but I had a dilemma because I also wanted to be a teacher. And I remember telling my mum, how am I going to be a nun if I also want to be a teacher? And she said, well, you can be like the flying nun. You can be the teaching nun, because the flying nun was the first big kind of sci-fi and TV. So, when you go, well, I couldn't have done it without a faith or without a sense of purpose, or without a sense of destiny, because it's too tough of an industry to survive in if you don't really intrinsically believe in the pit of your belly that you are doing what you're put on this planet to do. Because a lot of actors, filmmakers will go, they'll look at it and they'll go, oh, the glamorous aspects of it, and they'll get it and they won't survive, because it's not a need. That's the difference. It's a desire of the flesh. It's the ambition of the mind and the ego. But only the true ones that are like, this is what you're cut up and you're bred and you're brought up for, is to be able to be in this position where you can contribute to humanity. Survive this industry. And I'm honest, bro. I tell young people who say they're interested in actors, I go, no. I say two things: food or medicine. People have to eat, and people get sick. Those are the two guarantees. And when you look at this shutdown, that is still solid advice today. The only people who've been able to work are our essential workers, and that's food and medicine. The rest is a luxury. However, I'll also say about this period of lockdown, what did everyone turn to? The arts. What would people have done if they didn't have their music, if they didn't have television shows to watch, films to watch, books to read, the internet? What would they have done without all of this creativity, without all the arts? So for me, the arts are a 101 medicine. To me, yeah, choosing this path, and I believe it's true for not just me, but for many. The great thing, the gift of the arts is choosing the artistic life, is it's a pathway to self-discovery and to healing. For me, those are the two really important things: self-discovery and healing. And I'm at an age now where, because in my 20s and 30s, you're still dealing with a lot of insecurities, demons, or your whatever, your effed upness, whatever, and you sort through it and you grow through it and you move on if you're lucky, because many don't. We lose a lot in the valleys. But as I say to people, you can't get to a mountaintop without walking through a valley. It's whether you can survive those valleys and come out of that valley as a better person, and you take the good and you leave the bad behind. And what I'm loving most about your 50s, because it is you're at a time you're comfortable in your own skin. You're very clear about who you are, why you're here, and you can really, really be of service and start to give back and to be a mentor to others, and because we're now considered elders. Not that I consider myself an elder, because I'm not past 60 yet, but I am going to say, once you get to 50, once you pass 50, you get to 50, you go, oh my God, I have lived the bulk of my life. My life suddenly looks really, really short. I might be lucky, I might be blessed, I might live another 50 years. But say once you're 50, if you get another 20, another 30, whatever, you've lived the bulk of your life, and you have to really zone in and go, my God, what am I going to choose to do with my life? And you relish the great, most precious gift to any of us is the gift of time. Because once you spend it, you can't get it back. So we have to spend each moment wisely and relish the time you have. And I think that's a thing too that came from nursing. As a young nurse, as a young 18, 19-year-old, I saw life and death in the palm of my hand. I remember working in the accident and emergency because we were hospital trained. So we got to work in every department. I'll never forget some of the things I saw in accident and emergency. I saw young kids coming in who'd been in car accidents, and you're fighting to keep them alive, and they're there 1 minute and they're gone the next. And I saw how precarious this gift of life is, that none of us can take it for granted, and that this great Bible saying, and in fact, I think it came up in Gladiator, we are but a breath, and that's all we are. And we're dust to dust. All we are is breath. And I think the breath is underrated. But for me, breathing, this ability, the first thing we do when we come into this world is we go, and the last thing we do is, so to me, when we breathe in our spirit. And it's the thing that connects us all. And because you can take away a mind and still be alive, you can take away a body and still be alive. But the thing that connects us all as a species, as human beings, and also connects us to our animal planet and to our plants and our trees is breath. Without oxygen, we no longer exist. That's how important one breath is. And it's also why breath is at the center of practices like Tai Chi or yoga or spiritual practices. Because for me, and that's how I work as an actor. I have to breathe. I breathe my way through it. I can't do my job if I don't breathe. But anyway, I'm ranting and raving.
No, not at all.
Not raving.
Not at all. This is, I mean, it's funny because you've kind of like answered so many of the questions that I had just by, and all people want to hear is you talk anyway. So, and I'm super grateful for it. It just made me breathe right now, and this industry, I feel the same way, right? I've always been. It's not a want of mine to be a storyteller. I always have been. You know what I mean? It's I could have done a lot of other things to become rich, but I can't. I have to do this. It's like it's my life's purpose. I believe that to my core. What advice? Let's try to get into some advice, because you kind of answered this, but what advice would you give to actors that want to grow, or they're trying to find their way, or like there's an interesting question, and I'll preface with this, but like when they ask Martin Scorsese says, if you want to become a filmmaker, I can't tell you what to do. I'm not a teacher to help people to become famous filmmakers. But if you want to be a storyteller, I can teach you.
That's exactly right. And there's a few things that have stuck with me throughout the years. First and foremost, don't try and be something you're not. Don't try and be an actor or a director if that's not what you're made to do. You can't be something you're not. It's like me suddenly trying to be an Elon Musk. I can't do what he does. All right? So figure out what you're made for. Because you will have qualities that will lend themselves to certain industries. You can't be an actor or sustain a career as an actor if you're not cut out to be an actor. We're all cut from different cloths. So, that's what youth is about. Youth gives us the opportunity to figure out what we are good at and what we like in primary school and high school. We figure out, I'm a real great athlete, or I just love baseball. I love basketball, and this is what I want to do with my whole life. I found that on stage. I thought, I love making the audience laugh and cry. This is my place in the world. So set out to be what you know you've been created to be. Don't try and be something you're not, because you won't succeed. Secondly, if you've figured out, okay, like me, I have these stories to tell. I'm dedicated and I have a story to tell. And that's why I attracted a mentor who helped me develop my first play and went on to direct it. And she didn't get paid money. But I asked her many years later, I said, why did you do that for me? And she said, for two things. She said, you had something to say and you were dedicated. And she also gave me another very valuable piece of information. She was a very famous actress at the time. She was Linda LaPlante's first leading lady in the original TV series called Widows. They did a film with Viola.
Yeah.
She was the main widow, Dolly.
Wow.
And she said to me, listen, honey, she said, no one is ever sustained in full-time acting work. Not even when you're famous, and that she was. She said, you've got to have something else that you want to get out of bed for. Otherwise, you will be prone to falling into that black hole of depression. And she said, you can write. She said, don't ever give up your writing. It was one of the best pieces of advice, because what sustained me, and I think this is true for a lot of us creatives, we're big kids. We just want to be in our playpens being creative. And as long as I've got something that I'm passionate about, that I believe in, I'm a happy camper, because I just need to be creative. So as an actor, do not put all your eggs into one basket. So I created roles for myself. Another piece of advice, if it's something you really want to do, then don't hang around. I just instinctively knew that no one was going to be calling me up and offering me Polynesian roles. Okay, so I had to create roles for myself. But the great thing about that is it consumed me. And I'm a typical creative. I can get quite obsessed when I'm obsessive with what I'm writing or I'm creating characters. And Michael Caine said something similar to Scorsese. And he was someone I used to watch a lot of his lessons, and he used to teach at the National Theatre in London with experienced actors. They were master classes, and you could sit up in the gully and watch and listen. And if you can find it, there are actually videos out there of those classes, and it was called, and then he wrote a book based on that series of lectures at the National Theatre called Acting for the Camera. And he says in the book, he said, look, if you're coming into this industry, like Scorsese said, for fortune and fame, forget it. Forget it. He said, come into this industry. And he said, set out to be a good actor. And if being a good actor brings you fortune and fame, you're blessed. But it's never the reason to come in this industry, because it won't sustain you, because you're going to have too many disappointments. You're going to have too many times where you haven't got a job. So if your value and your esteem and your self-worth is invested in someone employing you, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Create your own stuff. Create who you are and who you're going to be. Be a co-creative in that process. Because I think, even myself included, for a long, long time, you think, oh, it's just going to fall out of the heavens and someone's going to discover you in your shower. No, it actually doesn't work that way. You realize that, damn, you're going to have to get off the couch and you're going to have to put some work into this. And if you put the work into it, what that becomes is you're positioning yourself for favor with opportunities. You've positioned yourself to be right and ready for this role. Or you've positioned yourself like, take every opportunity. The Orville's a great example. I got an invitation to audition for a pilot. I read the script. I said to my agent, I'm not right for this character that they want me to audition for. He said, yeah, but they still want to see you. So you put the time. I invested the time and the money into learning my lines and to doing the dialect coaching session. I showed up into that room. I did a good audition. I wasn't right for that character, but they said, oh my God, she's perfect for episode 3 for this other role. Had I not taken that opportunity, I wouldn't have then got this role that then went on, grew to become a reoccurring role. So you have to be a co-creator in creating your opportunities. No one's going to show up magically and boom, here's your Oscar role. It's like Michael Caine also said. He said, you show up, you do that background stuff. You do that one-line scene. You do that cameo role. Because he said all the actors who turned down those little roles because they thought they were too big and too important for them didn't end up getting the big roles. But the people like him who were a workhorse, who showed up and said, this is an opportunity. They weren't thinking, what am I going to get out of it? They were thinking, this is an opportunity for me to be on a set. This is an opportunity for me to learn something. And he said all of that small time experience geared him up and prepared him for the big time opportunities because he'd done 1,000 one-line roles. Right. So never think you're good enough, because a lot of us can fall into that trap when we're younger and more naive, because, we can see what the God-given talent we have, but until we're given the opportunity to share it with the world, it takes a lot of humility, this industry. It takes a lot of grace. It takes a lot of grit, because you're going to go through rejections. You're not going to get that job, so it's more like, what are you going to do how are you going to get back up, brush your knees off and go, I went through it multiple times. I went through it in my first 10 years where I was working my butt off because I started in London and then my father passed away. So I'd gone home to New Zealand. And I was really lucky because I bowled up at a time. I became a member of the first ever dramas made by Māori for Māori on television New Zealand, 5 one-hour dramas. And I got cast in 2 of them. And that's where I met Lee Tamahori, the director, who directed one of those episodes. I also met Rewia Brown, the writer, and Don Sowan and Larry Parr, who became mentors to me. And that put us all together. And so a lot of the people who came through that stable at the end of the 80s are now at the top of their game. So, in your mind, you might see what you can become, but just in reality, if people say, yeah, you want to get into this industry? Yeah, you can go hold that sign on that road. Hold that sign on the road. You know how Lee Tamahori started in this industry? He loved film so much. He loved movies so much. He started driving trucks for productions. And then eventually he wanted to start working on set. So he started in a sound crew. He started as a boom operator. Then eventually worked his way up into the AD department. And then the ADs, he became third AD, second AD. He worked his way up to first AD. And he AD'd, the last films he AD'd in the 80s was Kurosawa's Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence.
Wow.
He AD'd the films that launched Sam Neill, Roger Donaldson. And then he went into directing commercials and became one of the top most awarded commercial directors in the South Pacific between Australia and New Zealand. He got offered film scripts, but he waited. He waited for the right one. And then finally, Once for Warriors came his way and he thought, yeah, this is it. Everyone thought he was an overnight success. No, dude, he'd been 20 years in the making. You look at anybody in our game, writers, actors, directors, producers, they didn't have that they weren't a one-shot wonder. You look into their careers, you'll usually see 10 to 20 to 30, if not longer, years of working, honing their crafts, learning their skills that led them to that Oscar-winning role, or that enabled them to direct that film that won an Oscar. It's, as Russell Crowe said to me, Bess, another great piece of advice. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Learn how to walk before you try to run, is what I say. Just accumulate the skills, accumulate the experience, because it is a craft. You're only as good as your craft, and that's learning the nuts and bolts of your job as a storyteller, whether that's a writer, whether that's an actor, whether that's a filmmaker. Do online courses. There are a lot of opportunities to learn. This is a great time to learn. You don't have to give up learning your craft. You can be reading plays, you can be reading books, you can be watching documentaries, you can be watching films, you can be using this time to learn. And that's all life offers us, is an opportunity to learn. And it is ultimately a wonderful school of learning. And if success comes your way, to me, it's a combination of many things. Like that first 10 years, I was going to give up because I said to my mum, I'm working my butt off and I don't have anything to show for it. And she said, just hang in there, girl. If I hadn't hung in there, I wouldn't have got Beth and Once Were Warriors. To me, that was my reward for 8 years of tenacious working my craft. And that's why I got that role. Is Lee saw me and he said, he knew I had the personal strength, but more importantly, I had the skills. Because I'd been working in theatre and he came to watch me in theatre and he knew I could pull it off. So all of that 8 years of theatre blessed me with Beth. I couldn't have done Beth without all that prior 8 years of learning my craft. And so every decade goes on like that. With every passage of time, you learn new skills, you get better at it. You have to learn a lot of patience. You have to practice a lot of faith, and you just keep doing what you can do to hone your craft. And as one great teacher told me, and I think it's true for writers, filmmakers, actors, the more you know yourself, the more you have to offer to your craft. Work on yourself. And this is the thing as an actor. You know, we're not like, I don't work on a car as a job. I'm the car. I'm the vehicle. My mind, body, and soul is the instrument. So if I'm going to go out and trash it, then I'm not going to do very good work. So for me, a big part of my job is the discipline of being present. And in order to be present, you have to be in that present moment and present mind, body, and soul. So there's a lot we as creatives can do in these down. It's a gift to us because we can write whole new scripts if we wanted. You know, we can watch all these movies, watch all these TVs and be couch potatoes and watch series and still be learning. Go, hey, that's a great shot. Oh, I loved what that actor did. Or, you know, hey, that's a really great thing. All I would dare to say to people is dare to be different. Because if you look at all the things that have succeeded, television series, films, those creators had something unique and different to say, and they dared to stand by their visions. Imagine if George Lucas did not have the courage to bank on his vision of Star Wars.
I know.
So that's what it takes, though. He was so clear about this vision he had. And if you look at it, it's quite old-fashioned 101 biblical storytelling. It's good versus evil. Choosing whether you walk with the light side or choose whether you walk to the dark side. And recently I got asked to do a little spiel for the 501st Legions for May the 4th. And I included that line because I said, I know it's scary times for a lot of people out there. But I said, Yoda, my beloved Yoda, as he said, fear is the path to the dark side. So don't be afraid. Keep the faith. And, things will, this too shall pass. We know this too shall pass. Utilize this season to better yourself. I think people are being forced to face themselves. Being forced to stay at home with their husbands and their wives. Things like that in itself can be very challenging because often we can get kind of just we can get distracted with our work and all of those 101 things. So utilize this season. And, it's never going to be the same. I mean, it's changed forever, but that's life. We evolve. It's a process of constant change and how we adapt. Look at Einstein. Why pick Einstein? Imagine he had more than 1,000 failures when he set out to create light. Imagine if he'd given up. Now, that's a big part of it. Perseverance, tenacity. Believe in yourself. Believe in this vision. Have a relationship with yourself and with God is my best advice. That's my big, for me, it's been 101, and I don't think I would have lived the life or had this gift of life had I not had a fundamental 101 belief in a power that is greater than I am, that has my back and that loves me unconditionally.
Wow, Rena, this just changed my entire day, and I'm super grateful to you. We have 3 minutes left. Is there anything that you can, I mean, you've put it all out there. Is there anything else that you can, I don't know what else to ask you. I was going to ask you a story about Spielberg and AI, but.
Yeah. Ask me that. We can go a couple of minutes over time. Well, what's the question?
What, I've never met Steven Spielberg. I know a lot of people who have worked with him, but what was that experience like? I remember watching the movie in the theater, and then I was like, oh my gosh, it's Rena Owen, and because you're in that huge carnival.
That's right, the Flesh Fair.
Flesh Fair.
I'm going to tell you a story which will really it's perfect story for you. So I just done Star Wars Episode 2 with George Lucas, and we shot that on the Fox lot in Sydney, Australia. Oh. I came back to LA. My agent calls me, says, hey, April Webster was a very famous casting director out of New York. She said, listen, she's looking for an actor and wonders if you'd be interested. And he said, here's the thing. It's for Steven Spielberg. She doesn't know what you're going to do, whether you'll have any lines. All she told me is that it's a big flesh fair and that background actors, day players, aren't able to pull off the moments that Spielberg is needing for the scenario. So he said, you might show up and you might just be an extra. And I said, oh, I don't care. It's Spielberg. Of course I do it. Of course I'll do it. So I go on set. I have no idea what I'm going to do. So the importance of being in the moment. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but he sees me, he comes over, he shakes my hand. The first thing he said to me is, he said, I think Lee Tamahori did a fantastic job of Once Were Warriors, and you were spectacular.
Oh my God, no way!
Yes, now that says a lot about who Steven Spielberg is. The fact that he knew the director's name, and not only that, pronounced it well.
Right.
Said a lot about the kind of guy Steven Spielberg is. Then he says, okay, this is what we're going to be doing. This is your scenario, and, we can ad-lib or improvise a little bit here. And the cinematographer who was going out with Holly Hunter at the time, I can't think of his name right now, but he was a very famous cinematographer. He's looking through his peeping Tom. They used to use those old lenses to look at actors, to look at the lighting and all that. And I could see he was kind of trying to figure something out. And then he said, that's where I know you from. Once Were Warriors. And Spielberg nudged him with his elbow and he said, yeah, she's doing me a favor.
Wow.
So that's my Steven Spielberg moment. So the point is he's just a very real human being. He's not full of himself. None of them are. And even George Lucas and Seth MacFarlane, these people who do extraordinary things are incredibly ordinary.
Right.
And they have a need to be ordinary.